Welcome to episode 1 of the Brillianteering You podcast. Brillianteering is the process where diamonds are formed under the highest pressures and temperatures, but become their best self through a final cutting stage known as brillianteering. All of us at some point in our lives have felt buried to the outward eye in darkness and overwhelmed. Yet my hope is that each of you will find your walls of opposition to become walls and ways of victory, that you will learn to compassionately use all parts of you in your life when rebuilding the broken walls in your lives. So whether it be from fear, perceived failure, loss, betrayal, disappointment, injury, or setbacks in life, I hope to help you become brave, to take the time to see and care for any unseen wounds of self. Because when you change and remember who you are, this changes everything. My name is Dr. Cher McGillivray. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a clinical psychologist, educator, researcher, mother, daughter, friend, neighbour, and believer that each one of you has a purpose that cannot be fulfilled by anyone else. I want to help you find courage to focus on who you want to be, not who you want to fix. We can get so stuck on all the things that we think are broken in us, flaws, weaknesses. We can get angry at them and find ways to avoid them. What we generally do is dismiss them, punish ourselves, push them down. These avoidance behaviours keep us and actually hold us back and keep us focused on the problem rather than on the solution. That we come to believe that the mountains are just too big for us to climb. Or we say to ourselves, who am I to take on that? And we get stuck with imposter syndrome. When we become stuck rather than living in our flow, we can sometimes feel helpless. Yet setbacks and disappointments, even adversity, can look like ruins, but each one holds opportunities for us to find treasure. I'm hoping that you will become the change that you want to see. If you want to be in a great relationship, be in the best relationship with yourself first. If you want to be a great leader or follow that great dream, be that person and invest in yourself. If we give the best to ourselves first and then to others in service, you are going to become that constant living waterfall. So just to remind you that this is not clinical advice or a replacement for therapy, but is intended for educational purposes only. So if you are experiencing any distress, discomfort or signs or symptoms in the conversations that we might talk about, I encourage you to please go and seek professional help. We are designed to be our best selves in relationship. So seeking help as a positive health behaviour that will help give you great rewards and insight to become your best self. The day that I decided to become a psychologist, I pictured the ripple effect. I sat by a river and I thought about just helping one person at a time to become their best self. Because when we live our lives like this, making the most of those little moments to impact others, you are actually becoming part of the ripple effect. A dear friend once said to me, the best thing you can do for me today, Cher, is to smile at someone to help someone, for it will cause a ripple effect that will eventually come back to me. So imagine casting your one stone, your one dream, your one voice, and when it hits the other side of that ocean, it actually will come back to you. Living authentically, in alignment with who you want to be, will give you more than self-confidence. Self-confidence is great, but it's no bigger than yourself. And to live a fulfilling life, we need to live a life with purpose. We are made for connection with others, not just protection. And our greatest gifts in life will be in the form of someone or something that causes you to reach into that old bedside table, pull out your one stone, your one gift that you thought was not important, use it in service to others, and it will become the most valuable part of your life that helps you overcome that broken relationship or betrayal or setback that causes you to be brave. So reach in. What's your one stone that you can use in service to help others that will help you become your best self? Sadly, we've all experienced some sort of degree of trauma, loss, sickness, adversity throughout our lives. Our initial response often is one of fight, flight, freeze, fawn, which is natural. We perceive danger as being a dangerous object, person, or a feared event, and we just want to protect ourselves. Our brains and nervous systems are wired for protection and for connection. Yet when we fear being hurt or rejected, we just want to avoid pain or failure. And we come to live in this constant state of protection rather than connection. This can sadly lead to a deterioration in our health and our mental health, our relationships with others, but most importantly, that relationship with ourselves. So, how can we reintegrate the broken pieces of our lives? What does it mean? Well, reintegrating those broken pieces means to reorganise, reintegrate mental processes after they have become disorganised by a psychological condition, a trauma, or a life challenge. Our goal should be to always try and get our bodies and brains back into that state of homeostasis where we can restore our bodies and brains back to health as quickly as possible. The longer we stay in that condition of distress, we are secreting cortisol, we're living in our autonomic nervous system rather than our parasympathetic nervous system. We're using our adrenal glands. This actual perception of living in this life and death situation is actually okay if there is a life and death situation, like a snake, which I saw in my garage only about a month ago. When you feel under threat, your amygdala, which is your fire alarm, emotional memory center, this alerts the limbic system or your brain, your emotional brain, when there is a threat. And you have to react to it to keep yourself safe. Your reptilian brain instinctively responds to that threat. For me, I went straight into my flight path, ran out the door, sat behind it at my dining table, Googled the quickest snake catcher who'll get to me. When we go into that state of fight or flight or freeze or fawn, your frontal cortex, so your thinking, problem-solving brain, goes completely offline because all your organs are now engaged for protection. My frontal cortex was completely offline when I had a snake in my garage. I was trying to work on my laptop, waiting for the snake catcher, but I really couldn't think about anything else, and I had this irrational fear that the snake could somehow slither underneath, like a crack in the door this big. So when you're in your threat brain, you are not able to think clearly. Your frontal lobe is offline. So our goal really should be to get back in that state of our window of tolerance. Because when our body perceives us to be under threat, we're handing over that power to our amygdala. It's being hijacked. Okay? It takes away our prefrontal lobe. We're less free to express fear because that amygdala is in action. So for example, if I look back, if I was to engage in some slow, deep breathing, get myself a cold drink, connect with a friend, turn on my favourite music, become engaged in something creative, calming, or I worked on something that I loved, my frontal lobe would come back online and it would tell myself that I can actually cope with this and I'm okay. It would help me get back into my window of tolerance, which is where we all need to spend more of our time in our parasympathetic nervous system, our rest and digest system. We're able to think more clearly, act rationally, and I was able to do that until the snake catcher arrived. Did you know that human suffering is not caused from the experience of emotional pain, but from the avoidance of uncomfortable emotions? Distancing ourselves from painful emotions is a coping mechanism that helps us survive, but it is that suppression of negative feelings and that subsequent disowning or separation from ourselves that ultimately leads us to experience greater psychological distress. So what are the 5 principles that you can use today to help you begin restoring your broken life? Number 1, lean into the pain. I know that doesn't sound fun, but one of the Shavano principles of spiritual activism tells us, do not insulate yourself from the pain of the world. When we are open to ourselves, to the pain of the world, we become the medicine that heals the world. Paying attention is the purest form of love, and as Paul Gilbert once said, a leading self-compassion researcher, the importance of acknowledging how painful things are is actually really important for us to be able to stand up in it, so to be real and honest about it. So whatever you are facing, if you can stand up in it, in your own body, then you will find that you do have the capacity to solve it rather than just avoiding it, thinking over and over and over about it. We know that depression or ruminating over the past or being anxious, worrying about the future is not helpful. Rather, facing your feared situations will actually help you feel in control and safe. An analogy I often love to give my clients is one of the eagle. Eagles are the only birds that fly directly into the eye of the storm. And when they get there, they find themselves actually lifted in the current above the other storm. And all the other birds are left struggling on the tumultuous edges of the storm. I love this quote also by George Adair. Everything we have ever wanted is on the other side of our fear. Have you found this to be true in your life? We need to be real with ourselves, and then we can be real to help others. So in order to hold deep pain for ourselves and others, we are going to need a lot of loving kindness and compassion. 2, take action. Inaction actually breeds doubt and fear. Action breeds confidence and courage. If you want to conquer your fear, don't sit at home and just think about it. Go out and get busy. Thanks, Dale Carnegie. Robert Schuller also said, if you build your dream will build you. This is so true, but it's going to require valiant action. A valiant action is defined as being very brave and determined, although it might lead to failure or defeat. So, do you still want to be valiant? There are no guarantees in life, but I can assure you that living courageously and not giving up will bear you much fruit, despite some of the barren seasons. Remember that winter never lasts forever. 3, take time to be still. To rest or be still is what our bodies need and our brains need to operate at their highest function, to heal and to access our highest levels of wisdom. To be at rest comes from the Hebrew word mage, which means refreshing. But when you translate it into Greek, it means syntrima, which means destruction. So how can resting mean to destroy? It actually has a positive connotation, as in the destruction required for preceding rest and renewal. So let's think about, what beautiful destruction do you need rest and renewal from? Overwhelm, fear, grief, a toxic relationship with others or yourself? It's going to take some time for you to rest and be still before that transformation. Let's look at the natural forces in cycles of life. Renewal and creation, looking at a baby's tooth breaking through a gum. It has to open up that gum, almost destroying that gum for the tooth to proceed. A caterpillar has to fall apart and decompose almost its whole body, but then there are specialized cells that develop into the body parts of the beautiful butterfly that we call a metamorphosis. A diamond is simply formed under immense pressure and temperatures and darkness, but it's all part of the Brillianteering You process. 4, reflect on who you are. Can you remember back to your childhood self? What did you dream about? What did you love doing? What did you care about? Do you know what your name means? I always encourage my clients to look up the definition and meaning of your name. It's a really important part of your identity, to remember who you are and who you want to be. It's never too late to begin again. Take action towards designing that dream plan for your life. Richard Branson also is encouraging us, write down your vision. Without a vision, people perish. So live in alignment with your values and your purpose, and start with small, achievable goals towards your vision. Top military speech Admiral McCraven says, start with making a bed. Simple, but it builds pride and confidence that leads to you wanting to make another choice, another milestone that day. Finally, connect. Don't disconnect. Sleep, exercise, good food and nature are really important. And we know that depression is a disconnection epidemic. If you look at how villages live in tribes to survive, they don't have depression. Depression is formed from social disconnection. We tell ourselves, I'm like them, they're like me, we feel the same, we belong. Connecting to a group of like-minded people will help take time for yourself, to care for you and care for others. It helps you stay resilient. Research on the importance of belonging to social groups, physical places, individual and collective experiences is really important and predicts many of our mental, physical, social, economic and behavioural outcomes for you and communities at large. So I hope this has provided you with a new lens that will help you see above your mountains and your setbacks and pressures, to encourage you to take action and start integrating these 5 principles to begin brillianteering your diamond life.